We're back to where we left off, which is we heard a big splash a number of months ago about ethics reform in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Our governor, Nikki Haley, assembled an ethics reform task force. I hope that the SWAT teams and other task force are a lot more successful in their jobs than what we're receiving out of ethics reform at this point. I don't want to take up any more time just rambling. I want to hear more from Ashley Landess with the South Carolina Policy Council on what they have uncovered and discovered that you need to know about.
Well, we've done our best, folks, but remember, we just got our hands on this, and it seems to be changing. Because after we caught a few things and brought them to the attention of others, and then journalists got an eye on it, one reporter checked and said, wait a minute, you guys weren't going to raise the campaign contribution, which they did, by the way. They did. Yeah. And they said, oops, yeah, that was a mistake. We have to take that out. Now think about that for a minute. This kind of thing is making it into legislation, and you have members of the committee saying they don't know about some of the stuff that's in there.
Yeah,
they didn't realize
that. They had it written down to read it before they voted on it.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? When the legislative leadership wants something done in South Carolina, these people control, remember, they control the judges. Well, they certainly control the process by which the judges are selected.
Right.
They control a lot of the executive branch through all these boards and commissions. And speaking of commissions, look what they've done here. They've created a new ethics commission. Now remember, folks, we didn't want the House and Senate ethics committees policing
the fox guarding the hen house.
Well, right. So what did we get instead? Well, we got an ethics commission, but it's a new one. It's not the one we currently have, which is structured the way it ought to be. Governor appoints, advice, consent, legislature, and terms that are beyond the governor's. That's the way it ought to be structured. Well, we have a new commission. The Speaker's bill would actually create a commission with 3 governor-appointed appointments, and then, Harry, guess what the other 6 are?
Let me guess. They are appointed by the legislature.
Bingo. 3 by the Senate and 3 by the House. So, what have we done? We have now got a majority of legislative appointees ruling on, that's right. And
which, even if they find that they did violate something, it's no longer criminal.
It's no longer criminal, so frankly, does it even matter anymore? But this bill takes us in the worst possible direction. We essentially have decriminalized a lot of corruption. Think about that. We can't hold them accountable for corruption anymore. So it's okay for your office to benefit you financially. It's okay to put your family members in positions, and just because there's a little fine does not mean you send the same message, right?
Right.
You can't punish politicians if they enrich themselves at our expense anymore. And that sounds harsh, but folks, when you take the criminal charges out, now think about that. Where else in the country are they saying it's not a crime for you to spend your campaign money on personal items?
Yeah. This is absurd. At the same time that they're decriminalizing activity that they may be involved in, we constantly see more and more criminal statutes being placed upon the rest of us.
Right.
And our lives are becoming less free while theirs is becoming, we can do what we want. Right. Ashley, we've got a call on line 1, and I would like to give out those numbers again. It's 232-9673 and 574-9673. We have got Steve in Easley calling in. Steve, welcome to Conservative Voice.
Hello, Ms. Landess. I'd like to say thank you for everything South Carolina Policy Council does.
Amen to that.
Thank you.
I looked up all the bills that were introduced recently this week, and I was going through them. But 3945, good gosh, that is one long bill to read through. And I try to read these things before I contact my legislators, and I noticed
good for
that,
you.
2 people from Pickens County, Phil Owens, Davey Hyatt, are sponsors of 3945. And so, actually, I've got to contact Mr. Owens and give him my opinion, but there's a lot of reading to do. But I was looking at all the parts that are stricken out and parts that are added, and yeah, it does look like they're giving, the keys to the jail to the prisoners.
That's right.
Very good point.
And then I found 2 other bills on your website, thank you for that are education related. One where students would be required to take a high school exit exam, but it doesn't count whether or not they pass to get a diploma. And it's like, I'm trying to wrap my head around that one. And then there was the other one that was 4-year-old preschool that they want to add that, a 4-year-old kindergarten. I'm thinking that looks like, free daycare for a bunch of people, not necessarily education. So I've written about that one to my, state rep already, but, everybody should go to SouthCarolinaPolicyCouncil.org.
That's right.
And look
Thank
at
you,
this, but
Steve.
reading through these bills is not that hard to do. You just got to get used to it. And if more people did it, more people would be informed. And I've tried to get people to do it. I hope you can convince people. You might need to train people in how to read through the bills for themselves.
Well, I tell you, one of the things we like to try to do, Steve, is read through them for you. Because, of course, you don't have time to read through all this legislation. And it's hard to catch all of the little tricks when you're not doing this full time, and you're not doing this full time. You have other things to do. So we try to look at as much of it as we can. But yes, there are bills up there. We can't get through all of them, and we hope that you can at least read and ask us questions. But if you go to our website, we are putting everything up there. We're looking at every piece of legislation, and we may miss a few, but not many. So we're doing our best to do that, but I think you've hit on an important point. These bills are deliberately complicated. They don't want you to figure this stuff out. They don't want you to realize they've decriminalized ethics.
Yes.
What they think is, because they put income source disclosure in there, that you're going to call this reform. Governor Haley called it reform. She called it something like the most sweeping reform, something like that. So she's out there praising this.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad she had
Since
a copy of the
Operation
bill.
Lost Trust.
Right. Well, I'm glad she had a copy of the bill because none of the rest of us did.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I was thinking when Steve was making his comments is that, Steve, at least on those other bills that you mentioned, at least you had some text to actually read. Unfortunately, on this bill, 3945, there was no text for constituents to read to contact their representative before their representative cast a vote on it. So let me ask this question. Did we not have some problems one time and we said no taxation without representation? Do we get a refund for the last 5 or 6 days when we haven't had representation? Because how can a representative voice our concerns when we don't even have the language of the legislation that they are considering? This is outlandish, and we cannot and will not stand for it. In South Carolina, especially here in the upstate, we're gonna really reach out to these legislators and try to get their attention. I personally plan on contacting my legislator about this immediately and bending his ear to make sure that this thing doesn't make it through any further without some serious amendments.
I hope so. Folks, this is truly one of the most dangerous pieces of legislation I have ever seen them pass in South Carolina. This bill is guaranteed to take us backwards. It's guaranteed to give them far more ability to represent themselves at your expense. No one in the country is decriminalizing ethics violations. No one in the country is making it easier to be corrupt as a politician.
Yeah.
No one is making that easier, but they're doing that at the House of Representatives in South Carolina. Now, in fairness, other House members will get their hands on this. In fairness, a couple of members of the committee have said they're going to come back in and try to fix what they didn't know
Right.
was snuck in there.
Right.
So we do see some people standing up. And, I hope that the folks out there will make it clear, because I promise you this, here's what they're counting on. You're not paying attention, you don't care, you're not concerned about it, ethics.
And you don't think it's going to affect you?
You don't think it's going to affect you. I'm telling you that they are making it more possible to literally use their office to benefit themselves, to have those conflicts of interest really irrelevant anymore.
Yes.
Think about the stuff you care about.
Yeah,
and then ask
absolutely.
yourselves, has it happened in the last 10 years? Have they passed legislation that you've asked for in terms of tax relief,
No.
education reform?
No.
Anything, whether you're on the right or the left,
That's right.
has anything you cared about made it through this legislature?
Folks, we're getting ready to go back into a break. Steve, I thank you for calling in.
Thank you, Steve.
Keep reaching out, contacting your legislators, as I know you do. We appreciate you calling in. All right, folks, we're getting ready to go into the quarter till break. This has got to be the fastest hour of your life when you're on this end of the microphone trying to get out so much information in such a short period of time. Folks, if you would like to contact Ashley Landess or call in and be a guest on the show with us here today, the phone number is 232-9673 and 574-9673. This is your host, Harry Kibler, with Conservative Voice. We'll see you on the other side of the break.